So, Laura Bell, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about how you got started, your experience in the business?
Well, I got started very young. It's kind of a funny story. I won a pageant when I was 5.
Mm.
I won a new car.
Oh my God.
I know it's ridiculous. Who gives a 5-year-old a car?
Yeah,
Um, but so clearly it's not for the 5-year-old.
right.
And then my mom was like, "We'll take the money," because I guess there was an option. And and then a couple months later, my mom got this call that we were invited to come to New York City to the Phil Donahue show. Now, none of your kids are going to know what that is. Who knows what that is?
No,
But
I don't know what that is.
you might be too young. But back in the day, it was like Phil Donahue, Sally Jesse Raphael, the Oprah show was like panel shows, like Ricky Lake
Okay.
show, stuff like that. But Phil Donahue was one of the first, and Oprah actually was as well. And so we go on this show, thinking it's going to be this celebration of children's pageants. It's like a freaking expose. There's a child psychologist. The audience turns and is like, "Can't believe you're doing this to your daughter," blah, blah, blah.
Oh
But
my
it was
God.
my first time coming to New York City. It was like this all expense paid trip. It was like very exciting for my mom. And we're from Lexington, Kentucky, and we
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
really know anything about New York or anything about the business. But I had been doing like local theater in Lexington, Kentucky, and I had been doing local commercials. And my mom was like, had me in anything that I could be in Kentucky. So I had like some experience from that for like a few years.
Yeah.
And then when we were there, so my mom was like, "I can't believe they had to come all the way up here and humiliate us." And she just like is was so ballsy. She marched me over to Ford Modeling Agency, which was like the biggest modeling agency in the world at that time. And she said, "I'm here to see the children's division." And they were like, "Do you have an appointment?" And she's like, "Well, no, but I sent in a picture, and they sent a letter back saying that if we were ever in town, we should come." And they were like, "Well, you need an appointment." And she's like, "Well, she's Miss Pee Wee Hemisphere, and if you guys are going to meet her, they're going to need to meet her now because we're leaving tomorrow on a plane
Oh
back to."
my gosh.
I mean, the cojones on this lady. And
I mean,
so,
that's what you need.
oh, and the guy at the front was like, "Yeah, there's a crazy lady down at the front." Um, and the kid's cute. They let us up. They let us up, and they actually signed me to a contract, a
Wow.
5-year contract
Okay.
to Ford Modeling Agency. That is literally how I got started. Here's the funny thing. That night, I went to see my very first Broadway show, too. And it
Wow.
was
And
at
what was that?
the Palace Theater where I did Legally Blonde.
Wow.
So
Oh
that was
my
like
God. That is
a
a full circle
kind of a
moment.
crazy day in my destiny. There's
Yeah.
still things coming out from that day, and
Yeah.
that was
Wow.
35 years ago. So there's this thing called Summer Kids. So my mom's
Okay.
like, "Oh my God, we're from Kentucky. I don't know how this is going to work." And they said, "Well, don't worry. There's this thing called Summer Kids where kids can just come up in the summer and they do the modeling and then they go back during the school year." So my mom was like, convinced my dad to go along with this plan. I mean, we go in the summer, and I would have go what they're called go sees. When you model, you go to go see, and then go see if they like you, and you have your little portfolio and you show all your pictures. And so my mom did all this work to get my portfolio ready, and then once you get jobs, you start replacing things in your portfolio with the spreadsheets from those jobs or the photos from those jobs.
Right.
So that started to happen. I started to get a lot of work, and I actually booked my first audition I went in on for a modeling job. But modeling was so freaking boring to me, and I didn't enjoy it at all. But the good thing is my mom was starting to, she would go to like Broadway Dance Center in New York and stalk all the teachers to teach me privates.
Uh-huh.
And then she found out by a word of mouth. I mean, this I had Mama Rose. That's how I got
Yeah.
started. I had Dolly Parton meets Mama Rose. And I was just
Yeah.
like going along for whatever, like,
Right.
showing up to tap class, showing up at. So she found out, the best singing teacher for all the little girls that played Cosette in, Les Mis, and that's what I wanted to do. And so I went to that singing teacher who really taught me how to be a proper singer, Jean McLaughlin, and and then I went to dance classes, and that's what kind of I would get this like hyper speed training in the summer. And the other thing she did is she found we were looking for someone who could send me out in commercials and TV and film. And I was a little green. I wasn't really an actress. I couldn't even read. I couldn't
Yeah.
read.
Right. So you're so young.
I couldn't read sides. I had to
Right.
memorize everything. I mean, to this day, I tape record my lines because I think I just heard everything out loud orally, and that's how I remembered things. So that's how I have to remember it now.
Yeah.
It's very you can tell me something once and I'm going to remember it. Be careful what you say.
Wow.
But like the reading thing was just not a part of it yet. So I then they started sending me out for things for commercials, and I started to get things, and then as I got better at dancing and acting and stuff. I was a pretty good singer at 5 or 6, really, believe it or not. And they were sending me out for other things that required singing. And then by the time I was 9, I auditioned for the Radio City Music Hall's Christmas Spectacular. And by the way, I got close to a lot of things, like Will Rogers Follies. I got close to. I got close to. I think I had callbacks for Gypsy, all these different things on Broadway. So I finally, at 9 years old, got the Christmas Spectacular at Radio City, and then that led to the conductor of that show, the musical director for that show, was writing a brand new musical called Ruthless, and he needed a little girl. And so he approached my mom at the audition, actually, for Radio City Music Hall. So before I even knew I had a callback or anything for that show, the conductor ran out to talk to my mom. I've been looking for like a little blonde girl like her to star in the
Wow.
musical. So even if she doesn't get Radio City, here's my phone number. Please call me.
Wow.
So that was kind of, and then I ended up starring in that show, and that's the show that Britney Spears was my understudy in.
Wow.
So
I
that
didn't know that.
yeah, there's a lot of
That's so
information
cool.
at you, but that's how I started. So I started in the business basically as a pageant kid from Kentucky who could sing and dance and do the talent portion of a pageant, and then my mom, just sort of like pushed and drove, asked all the questions. But there was a lot of struggle in that. Like we were living in, like, we called them the rat hole and the roach hole, and these little sublets in New York City, and we didn't have a lot of money, and they were walk
Yeah.
ups, and it was across the street from hookers and abortion clinics and homeless people. It was just nuts.
Right.
And New York City wasn't safe. What at that time, it really wasn't safe. It was pre Giuliani, which is like a joke if you're from New York and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it was just rough in terms of, like, you just didn't necessarily feel as safe as you did after 1994,
Right.
96.
Awesome. I love it. I love that. So something I want to really touch upon in all these interviews that we're going to be doing is how different everyone's story is, because I think everyone, is looking for the answer, or, how do I get to where you are, now. Um, so I think that's great. I love that, you started so young. And so you started off with this modeling contract. So when did that kind of turn into a talent agent, for
Right.
performing, acting, singing?
It was like kind of one thing would lead to another thing would lead to another thing. So like when we went to Ford Modeling Agency, they didn't do commercials, but they had a relationship with J. Michael Bloom Agency. And then so we went there, and Barbara Laga, who is now named Barbara Coleman, who is now at Innovative Agency, the children's department, was my very first agent. And I remember she had me read at 6 this Smucker's Jelly commercial thing, which obviously I was like barely reading, and my mom was, anyway, I memorized it and I did this whole speech. So she signed me, and she was like, well, we'll work with her. And then there was this manager at Terrific Talent who my mom ended up deciding to put me with, because she did a lot more film and TV for kids and a lot more commercials. And how they worked is when you had a manager during this time in New York, and I'm not sure they do this anymore, you could freelance between the agents. So we had this manager. This manager took a percentage, and then what would happen is that manager would take calls from all the agents. So any agent that got the call,
Gotcha.
they would call the manager, and so there was more opportunities that way.
Right, right.
So I did that. I ended up doing that, like, I think my second year. And
Okay.
then eventually my mom decided to manage me, and I didn't have the manager anymore, but I still did the thing where any agent could call,
Yeah.
until I started really doing more theatrical talent stuff. And that's when I actually, I want to say I was with Abrams for a minute, and then I ended up getting signed to WME and ICM at a young age, and those are bigger agencies. But
Yeah.
that's kind of how it started. You know,
Awesome. Yeah.
you do it was a very different time in, the 80s and 90s in terms of how they do
Yeah.
auditioning and agents and stuff like that. But it still was like my mom was hearing from other mothers. We were meeting
Hmm.
people out at things. Once one opening happened for me and an agent was there, and then they were talk to me or my mom, and then
Right.
I would end up signing with them, and someone would come see me at a show and inquire about my representation. I think it's much easier to get representation when you're out there in the world doing things.
Right.
The other thing to
100%.
keep in mind is that you don't always need an agent to get a job.
Hmm.
And a perfect example is Marvin Layard, the conductor of Radio City Music Hall, coming up to my mother at an audition for something else and saying, I've been looking for someone like her. And
Right.
then me doing Ruthless, which I did not get through an agent, and having other opportunities come because they sat in the audience at the reading the workshops and the actual show. And that
Right.
has always been the case for me.
Wow.
Always. A lot of the jobs that I have gotten have been because of the relationships that I have, or because I was doing some show or concert or whatever, and someone came up and said, Hey, I'm writing this thing. I'd love for you to be a part of it. And then I would do that reading or that whatever and be a part of that. And someone I met from that would say, I've got this other thing. It's all about relationships. It's about cultivating relationships, especially when you're getting started early in the business. And when I was, I think, in my early 20s and I was breaking into the Broadway community, I basically said yes to anybody's reading they had. You've got a reading for some obscure musical. Well, I'm going to do that because that could lead to something else. And often it
Right.
did. Sometimes this young director who was like, hadn't ever done anything before is directing this musical and then 5 years later wins a Tony.
Wow.
And then you've worked with them, they like you acted like a professional, they respect your work, and then now that they're an established director, they're like, oh, who'd be great for this? So that happens a lot. I did Legally Blonde, um, and that was no coincidence that I was up for that part because it was being directed by Jerry Mitchell, who had been the choreographer of Hairspray 4 or 5 years before.
Yeah.
And
And
he agreed.
I heard somewhere that you or you or he came to see you as Glinda and when you went on as the standby to see
Yes,
if you could kind of,
like
hold
a variation.
carrying the show. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And he came and he was like, she can
right.
definitely do it.
But I still had to go through the ringer. I still
Oh
had to
yeah.
the rest of the rest of the team, and then I had to do readings of the show. And every day is an audition when you're doing a reading in a workshop.
Hmm.
Even every day in rehearsals an audition because they can
Wow. Oh, I didn't know that.
well, yeah, of course they can. I mean, they have
Yeah.
to pay you out, but they, if it's not working out,
They're gonna get someone new.
exactly. But you don't want to
Cool.
feel like that. You want to feel confident when you go.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. All right, so I think we're gonna move on to like why we're really here to talk, and what we kind of talked over email was, are you in this, what we want to kind of express to these young actors? Are you in this for the work or for the fame? And there's a lot of platforms out there now, YouTube, TikTok, and it's, you could gain this huge following or you could not gain a following and kind of feel this, am I worthy of doing this? No one's liking my videos. And you kind of have to push yourself to realize you're there to do the work. You're there to enjoy the love of making those videos or singing that song. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think you have to think about the root of why you do anything. We have to ask ourselves, what is motivating us? What is the reason that we're doing it? So for me, it's play. It's fun.
Yeah.
We're acting in a play. We are playing music. It is play. It is fun. I couldn't get over my childhood. I'm just gonna say
Yeah.
professionally.
Yeah.
And then I get really good at playing. I develop characters better. I go deeper. I get funnier. I it's the work and play combo. I work to become better at playing so that I can have more fun. That's why I do it. Yes, there's this sense of like getting the response from the audience, and that's fun.
Yeah.
That is part of it.
Yeah.
There's energy, there's an exchange of love on stage.
Yeah.
There's an
100%.
exchange of love. The actor works really, really hard, has a lot of fun, gives it to the audience. The audience is laughing, gives it back. The actor feels that, gives it back. So there is a rush there. There is this sense of like sharing that happens when you are in theater, especially. And I think that is a motivator for a lot of young people. The problem is when you are trying to attain fame, receive some form of substantial love from performing, because there is so much rejection and there are so many opinions that
Yeah.
you can be cut down really short. You know, you could have your 15 minutes of fame and then it's so for me, I'm in it for the work, for the play, for the enjoyment of every moment. That's how I approach an audition. This is going to be fun. I'm going to create a character and I'm going to make some bold choices and I'm going to crack myself up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do that when I'm in rehearsal and I'm going to do that when I'm on stage. And the thing with me for rehearsal is I know I play better, play harder and have a better time when I'm off book.
Okay.
So that means I'm going to go memorize my lines, work hard on knowing my material, all that stuff before the first day of rehearsal. And if I don't, I'm going to spend my nights and my mornings on the way to rehearsal trying to learn that, because once it's in my head, then I can play and have fun. So that's the part of the work. And the work is really the thing that now that I'm older that I love. I love figuring out what the blocking could be because I've done the research on the character. It's pretend, to have a character and go like, why are they behaving that way? That's fun to think about. Like, wonder what their backstory is, and creating a story. So that's just like being a child and being like, I'm going to be the doctor. I'm from this place. Blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. It's just
Right.
having that spirit of play always. And so when you do your TikTok videos, your spirit of play, how can you make your video better? Play harder. Work
Right.
harder to make it funnier, make it more playful. Does that mean you've got to go buy wigs and buy things and da 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 and edit it faster and funnier? So there's an element of research involved to
Yeah.
make your videos good. There is an element of observing what will make your video great, and a
Yeah.
lot of that is simply shock value. People
Right.
love shock value.
Yeah.
So, that's how you're going to get the response. But if you're in it for the fame, it it will never work because it does require so much work.
Yeah.
And the point is you love yourself, right? You don't wait for someone else to love you. When you're having a good time and you feel joyful and you feel sense of satisfaction because you know your lines and you've created this character and you've fully committed. Fully committing is where the joy is, where the fun is, where the juice is. That's when you love yourself. You don't need anybody else to love you and validate you,
Yeah.
right? So I think for me that's it. And I really enjoy the process now more than I have ever enjoyed the process. This business is too hard to be in it just for fame
Yeah.
and
Uh,
for likes and for likes. Now that's a bunch of in my opinion. We do a lot of things these days on social media for likes. We
yeah.
curate posts, we Photoshop, we FaceTime, we filter. We show this, we present this version of ourselves that really isn't ourselves. And that's why it feels empty.
Mm.
And then these moments we have that are genuine moments with other people, we spend the whole time on our phones.
Yeah. It's so true.
So I say to young actors out there, if you're going to create something cool, cultivate it, take your time to do it,
Yeah.
right? Notice and observe life. Don't spend your entire life in your phone. You won't learn what you need to learn as an actor. You need to go through ups and downs in life. You need to do crazy stuff. You need to have a lot of emotions and feelings. You need to feel the whole bit of it.
Yeah.
You can't protect yourself, you know?
Yeah. I
So
love it. And so when
I've
you
done stuff. One thing I will say is here's the other thing that I think is great about TikTok and great about Instagram and great about Insta Reels and great about YouTube. If someone is not giving you the opportunity, you can make it for yourself. If you see
yes.
that you're really good
Yeah.
at something, put it out there. If you know you're a great songwriter and a great singer, sing some songs online. Have people start following you. That's the beginning of a music career.
Yeah.
But make
100%.
the content good and interesting.
Yeah.
How is it uniquely you? And every person has a different path. There are some people who are much better at creating characters based on what someone else told them to do. Those are not the people who are probably going to create great original content.
Hmm.
And then there are other people that have got these great ideas and these funny things and they create original content and they're getting lots of likes and follows and stuff like that because of it.
Yeah.
But that may not be your path. You may be much better at getting given a role, auditioning for it and learning it and do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That may be your
100%. Everyone's path is different and unique and special. And in terms of you, because you are this, like, even for me right now, this is like crazy that I'm sitting here, chatting with you. When you started to get that recognition, what was that like for you? Did it make you, were you able to separate the work and the fame? Because obviously over time, it grew and grew and grew.
Oh yeah, I the thing is when you're in the rehearsal hall, if it's not working, it's not working. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter who you are.
Gotcha.
I felt a little bit more pressure sometimes when I became um, more
A
had
name.
more notoriety
Yeah.
in a rehearsal room or people having certain expectations of me. But I think I learned to rise to those occasions and I learned to trust my instincts and I dug in and did more work. You know,
Awesome.
every notch I've gone up, every role I've been given has been a challenge for me. And I've had to dig in and become a better actor and become a better singer and have more endurance and become a better dancer and all of those things.
Yeah.
I love learning. So for me, every show is an opportunity to grow. Every movie, every audition, every lesson I take is an opportunity to grow and a challenge. And so I approach it like that, and I separate it from um, the the part of being recognized or known or anything because I still have to sort of meet and exceed people's expectations,
Yeah.
and that means more work for me. More work. The more recognition I gotta dig in more.
Yeah.
It can't be 15 minutes. It's got to be a lifetime because I
Right.
enjoy what I do. I would pay to do what I do. So if you feel that way about acting, if it's one of those things like, they say, do you eat to live or live to eat? I live to entertain, to perform, to create.
Yeah.
I live for it. I need it. So I'll do anything for it
Yeah.
because it's the job itself that I love. And I also think there's something very, the friendships and yes, I've noticed that in my life. Yeah, I have some newfound friends later in life that I've met along the road, but I've really kept my core friendships to be people that I knew before Legally Blonde opened.
Wow.
Those are the people in my wedding. Those are the people in my life. And
So it's
those
the people before, you were
the
Laura
people
Bell
that call
Bundy.
me all my shit.
Right. Right.
Right? And that know me, that have seen me weak, who I can be weak and vulnerable with.
Yeah.
And I can be weak and vulnerable with just about anybody now because now I see that that's really how we connect with people.
Hmm.
But in order to be a good friend and I want to be in a relationship and I want to know people who see me for who I am and see me and I want to see them. And there's something that can feel very surfacey about being recognized and taking a picture with and da 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 that's not necessarily the whole picture. I'd rather have a conversation with you
Yeah.
than take a picture with you.
Yeah. It's more meaningful
That's
and
satisfying for me.
yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
I want to live my life. I want to feel satisfied, not empty.
Yeah. All right. I think I want to ask you my last question. So our theme or title of these little episodes are going to be called Grow and Glow. And so what was the piece of advice that really like helped you grow and then eventually glow into the person that you are?
There's so many.
Yeah.
um,
Or one that really sticks out, at the
there's
very
three. Can I?
beginning. Okay. Yeah. As many as you want. Yeah.
I'll give you
It's going to
three.
help somebody to hear them. So
One was Linda Hart saying 50% of acting is getting over your fear.
oh my gosh, that really meant a lot for me to hear today for something I'm going to do later. So thank you.
Right. It's getting over your fear. It's being allowing yourself to be open in those moments, channeling an idea and going for it. And the fearlessness is really part of it. Now, I have added to that in that I think that the way you can be fearless is to also be prepared. Because when you're prepared, you can come out on stage and be a total nervous wreck and step out and then you hear the music and you go, "Oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm prepared. I've
Yeah.
rehearsed for this,"
Yeah.
right? So preparation makes you comfortable, makes you fearless, allows you to open up, get out of your head. Um, then the other one is this great lesson that Jack O'Brien, who is the director of Hairspray, gave to Carrie Butler one night. And it wasn't my advice, it
Yeah.
was her advice, but I took it. And he said to her, "Tonight, I want you to do every line reading different." Now, she was totally freaked out by this and she was going over all these different ways you could do her lines and she got laughs every night, so he
Yeah.
just said this to her to keep it fresh. And boy, did it ever keep it fresh. It not only made her performance more exciting and riveting, everybody else on stage was like, "Oh my gosh, she's doing something different. Oh my God, I got to pay attention." And they were alive and they started doing different things. So I think being able to not get stuck in your choices, which that's a part of being fearless, is to come up with other ways of doing things. There's no right way, one way all the time. And
Gotcha.
so I challenged people to come up with many multiple line readings of doing things
Okay.
and take risks even after they've had a role for a while. Then the third is the advice that my father gave me every year of my life, anytime he could ever say it, which was, he said to me all the time, "What is the most powerful three-letter word?" And now I'm like, Zach, God, um, ask, ASK, ask. The worst thing you're going to hear is no.
Mm.
And I think I've taken it to heart even more. It's not just asking for what you need, asking for what you want, asking if there's an opportunity here or there's an opportunity here. But when you don't know what you're doing, ask
Yeah.
for help.
Yeah.
If you don't know where you stand with someone, ask them. If you don't know what someone meant, ask.
Yeah.
And then when you approach your characters, ask the questions. Who is this person? Where are they from? What do they want? How do they see themselves? How do they see the world? Where where are they in this moment? Who, what, where, when, how? Why? Why? The big is the why.
Yeah.
So ask the questions about your character. Ask the questions about the story. What's the conflict? What's the resolve? When does that happen? Who am I in this story? How do I turn the wheels of this story to solve this story? How can I be a better actor on stage? It's asking the questions. What do I want? Why do I want this career? Where do I want to be in a year? How can I get there?
Yeah.
What am I going to do in 6 weeks? It's questions, asking, 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 asking. Don't go through life with a bunch of statements because
Ooh,
you
that's a good one.
never learn anything from statements. If you want to learn, if you want to grow, if you want to be the best version of yourself, ask the questions. Be much more concerned about asking the questions than making people listen to you, what you have to say and what you think you know, because I guarantee you still don't know enough.
Yeah. I that was very inspirational. That last part. What your dad taught you, ask. And I think a lot of people need to start, asking questions and watch how their life changes, me included. I think that's so important.
Me too. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
why did I just state? Why did I have to state this? It's a question.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Before we go, I know that you offer workshops and classes. My students for my college edition program during the quarantine pandemic, we got to do one with you, and it was so great. If you want to talk about that a little bit before we go, I think that would be great. I would love for people to have the chance to work with you because I'm not sure that everyone knows that you do that.
Yes. So, um, I do. I teach the classes when I have time to teach
Yes.
the classes. So this last year I did a television show, and I like for 6 months I just couldn't teach anything. But sometimes when my time frees up, and it's between now and June, it's free.
Hmm.
So I have a 6 week musical theater intensive called Acting Through Song that starts next week actually.
Okay.
If you have anybody that wants to sign up, and basically I teach you my process. So I actually teach you how to ask the questions about your character, about your song, and go further, 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 as deep and deep and deep as you can go on your character, on your song, and the choices you make, so that you feel freed up to be in your song. And then it gives you the tools. So moving forward without me, you have it. You do a master class with me, I'm going to give you 15, 20 minutes of some notes. But this class teaches you how to do it on your own
Hmm.
based on my process that, I've had for 30 years, but that I've learned how to have.
Yeah.
This is based on the 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 wisdom I've gotten through making mistakes
Yeah.
and not knowing what I was doing. So
Right.
so acting through song, the 6 week intensive is great. I also teach you how to create memories for your character, um, and how to break things down based on the type of song, the type of musical theater song. I also help with, there are hard notes for people that can be challenging, and I
Yeah.
teach you different tricks and tools to either get through those notes or move on to a song that could be more in your range. And that's the musical theater 6 week intensive that I do. So that starts February 8th. It goes till March 15th. It's on Tuesday nights at
Okay.
7 p.m. Eastern. I can send you a little link to it.
Yeah.
If
Send
you
me. I'll
sign up,
I'll
you
share
sign
it
up.
on our site.
I'll probably teach one after that in the
Okay.
spring, and then I also teach a TV and film, and I guess it's theater, a scene work class to help you
Yeah.
break down scenes. They can be drama, they can be comedy, but people can be challenged from scene work. And especially if they've spent a lot of time doing mostly musical theater,
Yeah.
there are questions to ask in your scenes. And we observe human behavior, we observe the behavior of the character, we come up with backstories for each character, we create memories for our characters, we decide um, what is the objective of the scene, how to figure that out, what each behavior of the character actually could possibly mean, and and allow you to really sort of move the story along with your scene, feel confident in your scene. And so when you do scene work, it's not just about getting a piece of material and memorizing it.
Yeah.
It's about actually breaking it down. So it's the same thing. It's the 6 weeks. It gives you the tools, and then you move forward with these tools and you use them, on your own. And this stuff is beyond college level.
Right.
I have
So
a
you
lot.
have to be a serious, committed actor, ready to, challenge yourself and be committed if you want to be in these
Yeah,
classes.
and pay attention and be interested in getting deeper with your work. I will
Yeah.
say though, I taught a class last year, and um, I taught college graduates, and I taught college students. I taught some seniors in high school, and then I taught a handful about 14, 15-year olds as well in this class. Two 14-year olds were my best students.
Yep. I
Most
believe it.
emotionally available, cared, worked hard, cared, and
Yeah.
one of them I'm helping break into the business and actually have a conversation with her today to connect her with my very first agent,
I love it.
Barbara
I love
Coleman.
it.
So
That's amazing.
sometimes you just like find the diamond and you're like, oh my gosh, are
Yeah.
you serious about a career in acting? I think I can help you. Sometimes I can do that for as
I
well,
I
as a
love
part
that.
of
Yeah.
the class. And I teach privates as well. So that's anytime. So I'll give you that information. That's
Yeah, please send me all of this and we
yeah,
could when I post this, I'll also attach the link and it'll all be on the site so that everyone could just kind of access you and get in contact with you. Or me, I
great.
could always direct them to you. Yeah.
All
Thank you
right.
so much for
Thank
coming in.
you.
This was so awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. Bye.